I truly am the daughter of an assassin. I am both the daughter of an assassin because my father, back in the 60s, and he was murdered when I was 5 in 1970, he was a well-known killer.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Bounce Back Better podcast. Special treat this week. I'm interviewing Rhoda Banks, and she is one amazing lady. We are going to unpack a lot of what she's been through in her life to get to where she is. She has some fabulous messages that I know you're going to love. Lots of little nuggets that you can take into your life and improve it so you do bounce back better. Rhoda is really around all things are temporary and you're not locked in a place. And we need to open our minds and recognize that we can make the choice to move forward. So many synergies with myself. So let's jump on into this episode with Rhoda Banks. Hey, Rhoda. Yeah, it's so good to see. Yeah, we both got too much to say. Okay, welcome. I want to go straight to, oh my gosh, the book that you wrote called Daughter of an Assassin. Can we just unpack that, please? So, Daughter of an Assassin, tell me about it.
Yeah, Daughter of an Assassin is that title actually just fell in my spirit about 15 years ago. And I truly am the daughter of an assassin. I am both the daughter of an assassin because my father, back in the 60s, and he was murdered when I was 5 in 1970, he was a well-known killer. Like, his nickname is Earl Killer Williams. They are still doing documentaries on him and the gang that he was affiliated with. And then, secondly, theoretically, philosophically, my mother was the biggest assassin in my life because of the childhood unresolved trauma that she had, that she just passed down, and it showed up through her parenting. And my sisters and I, we suffered as a result of her inability or unawareness around her own mental health issues. And so, true story, Daughter of an Assassin, I actually have in the book, there's a story about a contract was put out on my life when I was young because my dad had shot someone's son, and he was in ICU, and if he had passed away, they were going to kill me. And my grandmother shared their story with me. They had to keep me in hiding for a while. I've lost jobs as a teenager because of who my dad was. If it comes up in conversation, which it did quite often, and me being a young child, didn't understand why my mother kept saying, don't tell anybody who your dad is because people hold grudges. That went over my head. I would proudly say, Earl Jr. was my dad, and I would get these stirs. And one time, my supervisor, I was working a summer job, he said, that's your dad? And then later he told me and my friend we can go home early. So we left because we were like 13 years old. And the next day we got back, we were being fired. And he said he did not tell us to leave the job site. And I was crying. I said, yes, you did. Yes, you did. He said, no, you didn't. Well, found out. He said my dad killed his brother. And so he couldn't stand to look at me because I really I favored him. And so, yeah, true story, daughter of an assassin, both my dad and from my mother's side. And my life came with a lot of trauma. I was like born into this legacy. But I chose to break through and fight and change the narrative and be something different from me and my family.
Wow, Rhoda. You know what I find interesting is your father was an assassin, which is just somewhat unbelievable. And right. The people that I know listening to this would be like, hello, what? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. But even more so, and what more people could relate to was the fact that the impact that your mother's, you use the word mental health, her behavior, her parenting style, and how that affected you. And I think, I don't know if you know, I wrote the book 3 Wines In, and 3 wines in. How do you feel after alcohol? You feel amazing. But it goes, each of the characters, it talks about the parenting, the impact of the parenting on the adult behavior, of the people. And people, I believe, don't actually realize that there is such a massive impact from our parents. So it sounds to me that you had two lots and they were huge. Can you tell me about, I'm going to go more to the behavior of your mother.
Okay.
Before we chat about your father, I think, what was the behavior and what was the impact, do you believe, that made you how you are today, or the bits you made the choice to work through?
Yeah. So someone asked me years ago, Rhoda, what motivates you? Because they saw that I was continuing to grow in my career and be very successful. And I said, that's a loaded question, but I'm going to give you a very simple answer. My mother's name was Dorothy. We called her Dorothy, me and my three sisters. She never allowed us to call her mama. She never hugged us. She never told us she loved us. And it's because she never got that from her mother. Now, we did call my grandmother Mama, but we called Dorothy Dorothy. So you'll hear me refer to her as Dorothy. The simple answer was, I never wanted to have to go back and live with Dorothy. She was very moody, and she would go to these dark places where she would go within, and she would sit with her head down, and she wouldn't interact with us, and she'd be shaking that leg, and she was very much victim mindset, and she also would give up. And what I mean by that is she would get really good job. If something went wrong, she would quit. That led to us not having food. It led to us having to constantly beg and lean on my grandmother. She would get frustrated with me and my three little sisters and put us out. We little girls, put us out the house. We would have a plastic bag with underwear and pajamas. Now, luckily, my grandmother lived in the same low-income housing neighborhood. We would walk across to her house. That's trauma that you're inciting on children, and we didn't understand that. When I turned 16, I woke up, she had a butcher knife to my neck, and she said, if you don't have a job by the time I get off work, you can no longer live with me. So I had to walk downtown, applying for jobs all day, because I believed her all day. And the last place I went, it was all fast food restaurants, was Burger King. And the man hired me on the spot. And I was so relieved, and I worked there for like 4 years. Like, that was my very first real job. And I asked her years later, why did you do that? And she said, because she saw me going down a bad path, hanging out with fast girls and wanting to be like them, and she didn't know how to reel me back in, so that's what she did. It was effective, but it incited a lot of trauma. So I internalized all of that and said she don't love me, she hated me. Like, I was terrified of her. I really was. So when you ask what impact it had, I walked around with a lot of anxiety. As a child, they would have to come pick me up from school because I would break out in hives. I was nerved up all the time because I experienced so much.
Yeah, that sounds like a very heavy childhood, Rhoda. So like just way too much for somebody to have to endure for all those years. You use the statement of, open your minds and all things are temporary and we all have choices. So is that where that was triggered? Where did that come from? Was it because of that, or how did that way of being for you become born as part of your identity?
That's a great question. And I could say this, that when you're living in these situations, they seem normal to you. You don't have these wisdom and nuggets and things that come out of my mouth now. So this I realized later in life. Later in life, because I've gone through so much. I mean, you would have to read the book to understand story after story after story. Someone just wrote to me today and said, Rhoda, I just finished the book. And as I was reading, I kept saying, maybe the next chapter, there's hope and some relief. It wasn't. It wasn't hope or relief. It was constantly trial after trial. There's a quote I love, no test, no testimony. So in order to help someone else, you have to go through trials and test yourself. And because I've gone through those trials, and because I've gone through all of the heartache, now I know, looking back, okay, all things are temporary. And because I made it through some hardships, even some life threatening ones, I have confidence and faith in that's just temporary. I know this because I've gone through a lot and I'm still here and I'm still standing and I'm still smiling and I'm still of sound mind and well body. So that's where they come. Life experiences have led me to that philosophy.
I think that's true for so many of us. I don't know if you know, I experienced domestic violence at some point. And when you're saying, when you're living in it, you don't realize that is so massive. And that's such a, for me, that was just an immediate association with that. When you're living in there, that is your normal, and you sort of begin to believe that that's actually acceptable behavior or the way people behave. And really it isn't, or it shouldn't be. But do you remember the actual pivotal tipping point for you when you realized, holy heck, man, I got to make a choice? Did you hit that rock bottom before you bounced back better?
A couple of times. One, when I first left home. So my mother's fallback when she put a knife to your neck or when she couldn't get you to do something she wanted you to do was she's going to put me out. So she was constantly threatening me with that, even when I was 18. And I had just met my now husband. We've been married 35 years, James. And my mom didn't like for me to have boyfriends. She didn't like for me to have friends. A lot of it was control, too, because I worked 2 jobs as a young girl. I helped her pay bills. I helped buy my sister's school clothes and shoes. So she relied on me. She was codependent. And I got so tired of her threatening me. So one morning she woke me up. She was like, if you get pregnant, I'm going to put you out of that. I just quietly gathered some things and I left and I never went back. And
you put yourself out.
I did. And I ended up at my grandmother's house and she said, Rhoda, it's time for you to go out on your own. She co-signed for me an apartment. That led to me and James moving in together. But guess what? She got put out, my mom, because she stopped paying her rent. And her and my 3 little sisters had to move in with me and James. There's a story in the book where we talk about she hated James because she saw him as someone that was pulling me away from her. One time she pulled a gun out on him and threatened him while I was at work. So that was another pivotal moment where I was like, nope, they got to go. So my grandmother had to help them find a place. So that was a time where I bounced back and I stood my ground. And it wasn't easy because even when they left, she would call me and threaten me and call me out my name and call me fat and ugly. And that's another thing. I grew up thinking I was ugly and dealing with all that self-negative talk because of the things that I was told. And so that was a big one. And another one was after I had my first son. I have 2 sons. After I had my first son, I nearly died. I had toxemia, and they had to take the baby at 7 months. He nearly died as well. I was temporarily blind, all the things that come with having a toxemia pregnancy. And she wouldn't come see me. My grandmother kept trying to get her to come see me, and she would not come. And I was so determined. I was like, I'm going to make it in life. And that's when I started even working harder after I had my oldest son. Went back to school. We bought our first home. And then she started coming around, and she was like, you could tell there's envy, jealousy there. And she was admiring the house, and she had never bought a house but wanted one. She eventually bought it, but she couldn't keep it. She lost it because she couldn't financially sustain it. But those are some pivotal moments where I have bounced back. And you mentioned the book you read. I wanted to ask you a question on that book you just read. It talked about the parenting dynamic. Did it talk about anything about the mother-daughter dynamic?
Yeah, the big impact of the mother-daughter dynamic. Yeah. I just unpack briefly how each character is formed, just like how you are talking about yourself, how the impact and what that forms in your life. So what I hear from you is kind of this: I'm going to make it without you. Like you your determination came from, I'm just going to bloom and show you.
Yeah.
And I hear that. And my effort was to get people to resonate with a character, to understand that you have, like you, life's a series of choices and you can be who you want to be, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to make that effort, just like you have. We all have to make the effort to be the person we want to be. Nothing's given to us on a plate. And even if it looks just like some people have, there is no overnight success. Rhoda, as we know, a lot of people who have been incredibly successful have worked incredibly hard, and they do things alongside of, like you, parenting, working, like all the amazing things that you get to do. It doesn't come with, oh, wake up, read the newspaper, do yoga in the morning, have a slice of toast, might walk around the block. What shall I do today? Oh, there's none of that in your world, I bet. And there's none of that in mine either, because we're on a mission to do the things that we want to do. But yes, we are, I believe, all impacted. And I just want people to realize that everyone's going through, been through, everyone has a lesson to learn. So Rhoda, alongside the impact of what your mum's parenting style, I really want to unpack now, before we got onto this, you talked to me about don't rush the river, don't push the river. What does that mean for you when you say that? What does don't push the river actually mean?
So it's some advice that an old leader of mine gave me, because I can be quite impatient. And when you're not patient, you force things to happen, you can end up in a part of the river that you weren't meant to be in at that moment. So the river, if you pay attention to it, has a natural flow, and it just streams the way it wants to go. And the advice she gave me was just let it go. So to me, what it means is to let things happen naturally and organically, and they will unfold the way they were intended to unfold. As long as I'm not pushing against it, because we can push against it. And I know this about me. I try to force things to happen instead of just allowing things to come naturally and let them flow. And it's done out of me trying to force it. Is just me wanting something really badly and wanting it now, instead of just letting it go and letting it happen and take place in its natural course.
I use a similar analogy. Mine is, if it feels like you're driving up a one-way road, you know, you're in the car and you're like swerving through traffic because it's not the way you're supposed to go. You turn around and you drive with the traffic. It's just so much easier. But yeah, that's one way, that a similar way that I tend to look at that. So when you say you are impatient, I like a little bit of impatience, Rhoda, because I have worked with enough people. Well, I've been coaching for well over 15 years. I don't do so much of it now. I do in our business in the realm of property development, but I'm not a life or business coach like I used to be. And I find that a lot of the time, and I don't know what you think about this, but people have that whole, I don't really feel like doing that, because, you know, fear and all the doubt and what's going on in their head and all the stuff that goes on that we understand. And so my fear is, if people don't have some level of push, some level of desire, you know, it's not as far as you're talking about impatience, but if you don't have that some level, then you end up doing nothing. So how do you know when you are pushing, when you're like going against the river, or in the right place? How do you know when it's right for you?
So the advice I would give to those listening or watching is, first of all, it takes some great self-reflection. So you have to know yourself. You have to have some level of self-awareness. You have to know your triggers. You have to know what your shortcomings are, your strengths, etc. And I would say your gifts, and what's my purpose? Like, why am I meant to be here? People, and I've learned that my gifts are things that come to me naturally. Like, I take them for granted, and other people come to me constantly for those things. Those are my gifts. So here's how I stay in balance. One is, it has to be, this is how I know I'm not in balance. I'm not aligned with my gift. I'm not aligned with my purpose. I'm doing something because somebody else asked me to do it, or because I think it's the next best thing to do. It's cute. to do or whatever the reason. But if that's not, and you can feel it, like it's like a pull, push. To the traffic analogy you just used, you're trying to dodge all this traffic. Why? Because we're not in alignment. I'm not in alignment with the river. So the way I stay in balance is I do lots of self-reflection, and this has come with age and wisdom too, because I was a big yes person. Even when I didn't want to do it, I would say yes because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings or let people down. But I've had to learn boundaries, and I've had to learn how to give myself permission, and I've had to learn and ask myself before I answer, give myself time and ask, can I think about it? And then ask myself, is this going to help me get to where I'm trying to go? Is it aligned with my values? Is it aligned with my purpose, etc.? And that's how you stay in alignment with the natural course.
But what about when some things are hard, right? Sometimes things are hard. How do you know I totally get you talking about the self-reflection thing, and I love that. And I want you to tell me how you do that after this question. But how do you know you're not just self-sabotaging and not doing something because it's a little bit difficult? And you know that where do you find your fine line? How do you find that line? Because I think there is a fine line there, Rhoda. I think sometimes things are hard. Life isn't easy. So we've got to do the hard stuff, but we can't always say, oh no, it's out of alignment with me. Yeah.
I didn't get to where I'm at by avoiding the hard stuff. I didn't get to you, Hilary, today by avoiding the hard stuff. I had to be vulnerable and put my story out there. Somebody say, well, how does it feel to have written a book? I feel naked. I feel totally exposed because it's a very raw story and very honest. To your point, it's again having an honest conversation with yourself. Only you can make that decision as to if this is something you should truly go with or not. But you are the one that know if it's something you really should go with. You know in your knower. Your intuition will tell you. Again, I tend to lean towards it because it's hard. And I'll tell you why. I love getting involved in stuff that I've never done before that makes give me butterflies. Because that's where you grow, in the unknown. And when you're stepping out and doing things that you've never done before, that's growth. If I'm just going to stay in the safe space, I'm not going anywhere fast. I'm not growing. I'm not challenging myself. Again, I'm not saying yes to everything, but I'm saying yes to the hard things that I feel like are aligned with my passion and that are aligned with where I'm trying to go. It starts with having an honest conversation with self. Am I shying away? Okay, here's an example. When I first started being contacted to do speaking engagements, used to be terrified of public speaking. The first time I was asked to come be on a panel, I would come up with excuses to say no. And I would say, no, I can't make it. My schedule doesn't align. I have a work meeting or whatever. And I said, you know what? I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to start saying yes and see where it leads me. And I heard a lady say, somebody say, I'm scared, I'm afraid. She said, so what? Do it anyway. And so I adopted that. So I'm scared, I'm going to do a lot of things afraid. I'm just going to do them afraid. And you just never know where that might lead you. Again, not doing everything, but I want to be a speaker. I want to inspire. I want to motivate others. I want to connect with people. I can't do that if I'm not willing to step out. So you have to be honest with yourself, and that's what I did. I was like, Rhoda, you got to get past this fear of public speaking and just go out there and try it and do it. And when I started saying yes and getting the reaction I got from others, and I could see that they were inspired by me, that filled my cup. So then I wanted to do it more.
Right. Now I get your alignment thing. So you'd still do the hard stuff as long as it is in alignment with the outcome that you are absolutely after. Yeah. And now talk to me about how you do your self-reflection. Is that a daily practice or is it something you do weekly? What's your timeline and best practice for self-awareness?
So it started off with journaling. So I have another book called Moments. It's an inspirational journal. And I turned that into a book. So it was actually my journal. and I would journal, and I would highly recommend journaling for people who it's very healthy to get it out. And you tend to follow through on things when you write it down as well. So that's how it started. But now it's become a part of who I am. So you ask, do I do it daily? Do I do it weekly? No, I'm doing it all throughout the day. I am asking and challenging myself constantly throughout the day. Why am I procrastinating on this? What's my reason? Let's get to the bottom of it. Like, I'm self-coaching. I'm accessing my inner coach, and I'm coaching myself through. And so it has become a natural part of how I interact with myself.
Right. And that's daily, and now it's momentarily as well.
Yes.
So just self-check-ins all the time. Another thing you talked about prior to coming on camera, Rhoda, is it's really important for you that there is a legacy. And a lot of what you are about is bringing people to an awareness of what sort of legacy are they leaving behind. I'd love for you to unpack that. Tell me why it's important, and sort of what your messaging is around that you hope inspires people to really consider the legacy.
Yes. So this fell in my spirit years ago, and it was like, what experience are you leaving people with after having had an interaction with you? That was the question I asked myself. It started there, and I was like, I want to leave a positive impression on people. I want people to crave the interaction with me, and so let that drive how I interact with others. So I am very intentional on how I interact with others, and that also, because it was practice, became the part of the Rhoda experience. People named it. I didn't come up with the name. They said, you need to get you a Rhoda. You need to get the Rhoda experience. And people would say, well, what's the Rhoda experience? And I said, it's hard for me to articulate, but after you've had some time with me, hopefully you would know that you've had it. And so what that means to me is, number one, being very intentional. Two, maybe it's because I'm aging and I'm getting older, but I'm consistently asking myself, what will I be remembered for? I don't want people saying, when at my funeral or when I die, if I have a memorial or whatever I have, I really don't want a funeral. Whatever my family or loved ones give me, I don't want people getting up saying, Rhoda was the best executive head of culture and inclusion ever. Or Rhoda was the best chief HR person I ever met. That's not what I want them to remember. I want people to say things like, Rhoda, not only did she want to see everyone win, she helped them win. And so for me, it's about what stamp are you leaving in the world? How will people remember you? And one of my things is, I want the world to know that Rhoda was here. And I am very passionate about that work. So everything I do is inspired by that mindset. I'm a mentor in a mentoring program. I've been doing that for 8 years, a formal mentoring program. I heard you mention that earlier. Very intentional. These become lifelong friendships. They start off real nervous and timid with me, and then by the end of it, we are meeting. Me and one of my mentees, we met in 2007. Here it is, 2025. We're still meeting for dinner. So that's, to me, it's like a domino effect. I want to create pockets of magic wherever I go, and I want people to remember me and talk about me in a way that's special and in a way that is positive and a way that left the world a better place than it was when I got here. So that's what legacy building is for me.
Ooh, I love that. Lots of nuggets there. I always say at the end of this podcast, text a friend and tell them how amazing they are. Because in a similar way, less from what experience I leave, I always want to remind people that we can make change one message at a time, one smile, one interaction with people that makes them smile or just increases people's happiness. Because I think personally, there are too many people unhappy out there. So on a similar wavelength, I probably don't do it as much as what's the experience people are left with me. I don't know if I'd like to know the answer to that, actually. So I'm quite forthcoming, quite, I'll say it how it is, pretty direct sort of person, and not everybody likes that. But I probably go along the lines of, I'm not for everybody, and I'm okay with that. But my message that I do like everyone to remember is that it's important that the people that are important to us, or the people that need reminding, that we know that it is important to remind people that they're awesome. It is important to just say, I appreciate you, or, you do a really good job at that, because not for me, it's not just the famous people that people know. For me, it's the everyday people.
Yeah.
Everyday people. My friend Leonie, the florist out the front, she's a legend. She's juggling this and doing that. How many mums or dads do we know there? They've got children and they're working and they're high achiever. They've just got so much going on, and then they've got good and bad things happening. And I think we forget as humans that we all have a whole life going on.
Yeah.
I see my partner's just dealing with some stuff right now, but alongside of what's going on in perhaps his work life, he's got some little family things he's dealing with, and we've got a blended family, and it's my birthday tomorrow. And, like, if you pack out what goes on in people's lives, I think we are so used to only seeing things from our perspective, so I say, put your specs on, change your specs, change what's next. And I think we need, for me, it's more around the awareness I like to create is yours is the Rhoda experience. Mine is the you experience. Everyone needs to just realize that everyone's having an experience right now, and the way you react or are within an experience, you're just like dropped into, it's like a ripples of 100 million ripple pools. I don't know if that made sense, but if you know what I mean.
I pictured the raindrop like dropping, and it creates that ripple effect.
But then there's like another one beside it, and there's everyone's got their own ripple effect happening. So for me, it's important that people remember that one small interaction, one small piece of kindness, one small piece of appreciation can make such an impact in somebody else's life, because it creates a ripple. Like me saying, wow, Rhoda, what an amazing story you've got. And there's so much more we haven't even scratched, touched the surface. But when somebody says that, like, I can't wait to read your book, or that you get, wow, what an amazing book that was, that feeling for you is a smile. How does that make you feel? It's good. You've just created a ripple effect from you that impacts your next interaction and that next interaction. And I think for me, I really want people to realize that they can have any success. Like you say, it's a choice, 100%. That is something that's so important for me. We all have choices, but we need to realize that we impact so many others on our journey. And how can we do that with not just positivity, but, or even if it's just the people that matter to you. And that again is that, like you mentioned, having self-awareness, and yours comes from journaling. I want to go now, leave that legacy you'd like to leave. I want to unpack something else that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, and we thought it might come up. It hasn't yet. I want you to talk to me about, for those listening to this on Apple or Spotify, Rhoda, she said what it's like living in brown skin, because she has brown skin. So I want you to talk to me what that means for you, because it came up in conversation, and not everyone's going to see this. Some people just listen. So what does it mean living in brown skin for you?
Hilary, first of all, I want to thank you for asking that question, because some people will shy away. It speaks to who you are. And like you said, I'm not for everyone. None of us are for everyone. Like, I'm not for everyone either. So I want you to know that we're all unique, and we're meant for a specific tribe. So if I'm not for you, you're not my tribe, you're not my people. So I just wanted to say that. And then to your other point, everyone has a story that they don't talk about. So people are dealing with things, and I wish that people on social media would recognize that. So you'll see me out there making comments. They're usually positive. They're usually, like, I'm usually correcting someone and reprimanding them for not being kind. So that'll be the Rhoda. Sometime now, some people I have to get them sold. But anyway, I even do that in a kind way. Living in brown skin, oh my God, it is such a. I described it to one of my leaders. He asked a similar question. I said, it is kind of heartbreaking to wake up every day in a world where you know you're not appreciated and you're judged by the color of your skin. That's heavy and that's real. So, from my perspective, I walk around on a daily basis, every interaction I have, even with you, Hilary. I have a mindset. I need to grab them by the heart. I need to get them to look past how I look to see me, the spirit of me on the inside. And then maybe the color of my skin won't impact them as much. So that's heavy. Like I call it being turned on. I have to be turned on all the time, thinking about how am I connecting with this person so they're not judging me by how I look. Science tells us you have 7 seconds to make an impression. You're seeing me like I'm seeing you, and we're sizing each other up based on physical elements first. And because the physical elements in the world come with stigma, especially if you're in brown skin, I'm constantly trying to fight against that. I'm constantly trying to prove to the person on the other end that don't look like me that, hey, I want you to remove the old lens and the old mindset and see me for me, not based on the color of my skin, but by the content of my character, to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. But it's heavy living in brown skin. I'm thinking about my son came home from college, which is a 5-hour drive from where we live. He came home for 2 weeks. He just left yesterday, and he didn't tell us, but he got stopped by the police on the way home. And he had 3 other brown-skinned boys in the car with him. It's a nightmare. Like, I'm thinking, is he going to make it safe? Is he going to have an interaction? He's such a good kid. He don't even smoke weed. He don't party. But the guys on the football team do, and they don't have cars, so they riding with him. And I'm worried about his livelihood and if he's going to make it home safely and sound. So I'm constantly calling and looking at the app to see where he's at. Heavy. I'm worried about my brown-skinned husband who goes shopping at a Nike outlet, and the police is called, true story, and my husband didn't even know the police was called. He goes to get back in his truck, and the police knock on the window, and he said, my husband like, what's up? And he said, these people in the store called the police. They say you scared the hell out of them for just shopping. He's a big, tall, black guy, but soft as a teddy bear. But they don't see that because they only see the brown skin and the stigma and the conditioning that we all have. Like, I have a stigma and bias against brown skinned people too. If I see brown skinned guys with their pants sagging and they got a certain kind of hairstyle, to be honest, I am thinking what they up to. Okay, should I walk on this side of the street? Except we've been conditioned to think about it that way. Again, but it's heavy. So it's just a heavy burden to carry. And especially in the climate we're in right now, highly political, lots of division. Just when we thought we were making progress, it feels like we're taking steps back. And then you have some who associate their political perspective with the color of skin, which isn't accurate either. But they don't know. They can look at me and say, "Oh, I'm sure she's with this party." They don't know that, but they make that assumption and they treat you accordingly. And in some cases, you can be in harm's way. So it's just really heavy. I try to stay out of people's way. I try to be, and it's not hard for me because this is who I am. I'm very kind to people. So.
Wow. Rhoda, when you said that, honestly, it brought tears to my eyes and I had full-on body goosebumps. And as a person who doesn't have brown skin, I don't know what that would feel like. And it must be absolutely just awful for you to have to constantly feel like you're justifying yourself and proving that you're acceptable, that you're okay as a person, and that you're same as everybody else, the same as everybody else on the inside. And I don't even know how to respond to that. I just don't know. If it makes any difference, you've got beautiful skin. I did think, wow, you've got great skin. But yeah. Yeah, that's not what the skin texture is like. What you're saying is like the impact of living with brown skin, and it means you always try and win them over because people see you in a different light. First of all, sometimes I don't even really like saying this because I feel like it's so diminished compared with what you deal with, but I have felt like that I've always had to prove myself as well in life because I've generally been quite confident, and a lot of women find that threatening. So there's an instance, there has been, not so much anymore, maybe because I've gotten older and I'm maybe less threatening now because I'm older, but there was that a lot in my life. I feel I threatened people just because I could just show up, and there was like a level of confidence that probably irritated some people, and intimidated. Yeah, I triggered them.
Hilary, I've dealt with that in my career because I am typically a high performer, and all I'm doing is I'm just working. I'm just doing what I do, and it stands out for whatever reason, but it intimidates my insecure colleagues, and I've had a lot of incidents where they've gotten jealous and they've ganged up on me, and I've been bullied in the workplace and all kinds of things. Yeah, because they see me as confident, but on the inside, I don't see myself that way.
You're just clawing your way through, trying to be you. Please see me. Please notice me. I'm being really nice to everybody. Yeah, I know. I do get what you mean. Well, Rosa, I think, honestly, this chat today has gone everywhere. We didn't talk so much about resilience. We didn't talk so much about the things we were going to do. Failure as a lesson. There were topics I wanted to cover. I'd love to interview you again in a few months, and we could do this again, and we'll unpack. Maybe just we'll go a bit deeper into some of these topics. I think that would be great. Before we end it, because we're coming to the end of time and I like to keep to a certain limit, what would be the one thing that you would like every person listening to take away from our discussion today?
And this is because this is something I struggled with. I would love everyone to take away, remember this. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It really ain't none of your business. It ain't none of my business what they think of me. It's a them problem if they got a problem with me. It's not a me problem. I would love for people to remember that what really matters is what you think of yourself, because you have to listen. That's who you hear the most from. It's yourself. And I wish I had known that and understood that earlier in life, because as I stated, Hilary, I'm 55 years old. I probably 3 years ago just stopped telling myself I was ugly. I didn't even know I would say it out loud. And friends would be like, Rhoda, stop saying that. And loving yourself is so important. The stories you tell yourself is so important. More important than anything else anybody else will say to you. So I would say be kind to yourself and reframe your thinking. If you're not thinking positive about yourself, if you're telling yourself negative things, reframe that and look in the mirror and say positive things. I was like, I'm fluffy, but I'm cute.
You are very cute. She's worth checking out on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, everyone, if you're just listening. Anyway, I would love to sum up saying thank you so much, Rhoda, for joining me. We will definitely unpack that. I think checking out Rhoda's book, Daughter of an Assassin, might be worth it. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. Also, Rhoda has a podcast, and it's called, what is it called, Rhoda?
Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company.
There you go. So
Yes.
there'll be a link to that if you want to listen to any more from Rhoda. Other than that, do your usual, please. Text a friend and tell them how amazing they are, because they are, and it's important, and it's that ripple effect, and we can change the world one small move at a time. And the other thing I'd like you to do, if you found this useful, please share it with somebody. So my friends, have a fabulous week, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.